Hey, listen to Wrestling Roundup, Free FM 89.0. This is Grady Hooker. Right now we've got a special interview with Mike the Match Hart. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So you are a member of I'd say one of the top two most well-known wrestling families. Could you explain a little more, maybe where you fall in the tree?
Sure, I'm actually Smith Hart's son, and he was the first son of Stu and Helen Hart.
So that would make Tyson and Natalia your cousins?
Well, yeah, Natalia is my cousin, and she
Tyson,
married
yeah.
Tyson Kidd, so he's cousin through marriage.
Cousin-in-law, some fancy connection there.
Yeah,
So where are you wrestling currently?
I'm wrestling currently in Ontario for a company called PWA Canada.
And that's just your general independent scene monthly shows?
It's the one I'm most loyal to. Anyways, there's a lot of promotions out here, and PWA is the one I've been the most loyal to because they've always been loyal to me. So, and they've got some really good talent down there. My brother Corey's managing me right now, and they've got some, really good talented guys down there that you might see in NXT one of these days.
So the interview came about, I think Jackie contacted me. You are, I believe, attempting to break into WWE?
If there's an open opportunity for me to get a spot or, even just looked at, like for a 3-day seminar, that'd be great too. It's not always about making the WWE for me. It's if I make it there, great. If I don't, it's still good because I'm still living the dream. So, very blessed to be able to wrestle for PWA and, keep myself busy too.
So would you say wrestling is your number one passion in life?
Definitely, yeah. It's something I've been very passionate about from a very young age. So, something that always stuck with me, and I was good at it. So, it always worked.
Do you have any memories, maybe, of when you were younger and growing up with wrestling?
I just remember always having those rubber action figures, and I remember going to the stores and picking them out, and having the ring and stuff like that, and always going to all the Calgary shows. WWF would come to Calgary, and my dad would always bring me down to all the shows, and I met a lot of wrestlers there, that are still around today, and it's good memory for me to have.
Uh, so you've obviously talked about your brother. Do you prefer the tag team wrestling or the singles?
I like both actually, but I think you can do more when you're a singles wrestler. You don't really have to share the ring with anybody. It's just you and your opponent. Whereas tag team, it's a little more challenging. It could be challenging because you've got to make sure everything flows, properly.
Okay. Do you watch the current WWE product at all?
I do. I watch all three shows. I even watch Main Event and Superstars as well.
So if you're looking at, let's say, NXT, do you think that the talent down there are outperforming the main roster?
Absolutely. I mean, those guys are all talented guys, and they all were on the indie scene at one point or another, and I think it all benefited them for WWE. I think having those guys down there is a huge boost for WWE and all their programming. There's some very talented guys they have signed to NXT right now.
Hmm. And if we look at the main roster and their current tag team scene, how do you think that's faring?
Well, I've always liked the tag team wrestling with Vince, but I always liked the tag team wrestling when it was in the 80s because they actually had real teams together and it didn't just seem like guys were just being thrown together just for the sake of being thrown together and everything made sense and there was always history with tag teams and I think everyone like forgets about those days too.
Yeah. So obviously you've got a nickname or a moniker that you go by. How did you get the match nickname?
It was actually from a friend of mine named Soul Champ Wayne Cudney came up with it. I was down at my dad's school in Cambridge, training with guys like Elian Habanero and Eddie Osborne and Jeff Black and all those guys. And he just came up with the moniker The Match, like, cocky way of saying, you are the match. Like, you make the match and you are the match. And I always thought it was an inside joke, like maybe I was a matchstick or something, but the name always just stuck with me, and I'm glad I kept the name.
So have you had a standout, incredible match that you've participated in that with your opponent?
I've had a few actually now. I had a feud going with back in 2011, I believe, with a company called Mecca Pro Wrestling, and I was in a tag team, the Heartbreakers, and we wrestled Violation in Progress, the team VIP. It was Randy Berry and MTH, and we had a pretty good feud there for about a year. And then with PWA, I had a really good feud with the Lilac family, Lenny Lilac and his goons. And now I just got off a feud with a guy named Eazy-E Eric Carney. He actually defeated me last night for my Ontario Championship. But I got a message today saying I was the second longest reigning Ontario champ. So I'm pretty proud of that.
It's quite a good achievement you can put there on the old resume.
Absolutely, and I've won a few tag team titles too with my old partner Joey Valentine from Mecca Pro Wrestling and for another company called EWLS in Brooklyn. So those all go on my resume too.
If you're looking out at the world, so you've got everyone there that's currently wrestling, who would you pick as your ideal singles or tag team opponent?
Tyson Kidd for sure.
Okay.
I think that we could feed off of each other, and I think that we'd be a pretty solid tag team. TJ's a very solid worker, and he's been, he has the experience. He's wrestled in Japan and England, and he's been mentored by some of the best, Tokyo Joe and Stu and Bruce, and so he knows his craft, he knows his stuff, and I think me tagging with him could be something, or even vice versa, like maybe wrestle each other. I think that'd be pretty cool. I think we would blow the roof off.
Okay, so obviously right now in the WWE, Tyson's got his tag team with Cesaro and stuff, but he's also focused on, with his marriage with Natalia, on Total Divas. Do you watch Total Divas?
I do, actually.
How do you think that Total Divas as a whole is helping the people, or do you think it's hindering or anything like that?
I just think it's given them some spot time. I think they're just a lot of the storylines I kind of find are silly on Total Divas, but I guess it's reality TV, so it keeps the audience coming back to watch what's next, So, but some of the storylines on there are kind of funny.
Some of them very unbelievable as well.
Yeah, it just makes you think, right? Like it could either make you as a character or hurt you, depending on what they put out about you. And if you're willing and able to agree about some of the storylines, then you gotta, accept criticism too when it doesn't work or it fails or it makes you look funny or.
Fair enough. So with Tyson Kidd and Cesaro, how do you think they're doing as a tag team at the moment?
I think that's an amazing tag team, and I think that there's more is yet to come from those two. I think tonight at WWE Fast Lane, you're going to see some new tag team champions.
Yeah, I think we were talking about it earlier with the other guys on the show, and most people are definitely leaning towards the new champions.
Absolutely. I think those two deserve it too. Cesaro, was Claudio Castagnoli, and that's his real name, and did Ring of Honor, and he shined on the independents too, and he's a completely naturally strong guy. And Tyson Kidd, those two just they complement each other, and I think the best thing for them would be belts.
Yeah. So we've seen a couple of them. I don't know if you watched them. The podcast, Stone Cold Steve Austin live podcasts, where he had one with Vince and then one with Triple H.
Yeah, I saw them.
What do you think of the two of them just being very candid in their interview, not holding anything back?
I think it's a good idea to sort of show the behind the scenes about WWE, but I also think it kills their business too, because there's a lot of young kids that don't understand. That's the thing about life. It's like just because you're turning 40 or 50, there's always young kids that watch it, and So I just think that more could be done too.
Yeah. Um, so back a little while back, it definitely used to be very much split in terms of if you were a heel, you were a heel in real life. If someone saw you walking around, you had to act like that. Do you think that nowadays your alignment or your character doesn't necessarily have to be followed as much outside of the ring?
Um, yeah, but I think they should also bring a lot of that back too, because that's what made it more convincing. Like, usually if you had a manager, they were the talkers for you, and you would just be the performer in the ring. That's normally they'd put a guy with you if you didn't really have any mic skills or and then you'd just be a good performer, right? So I think it hurts and kills the business both.
So do you think the WWE right now compared to 10, 20, 30 years ago, where do you think is the pinnacle or the peak of where wrestling was at its best?
I think for me personally, as just a wrestling fan, I think wrestling at its best was in the early '80s or late '80s, sorry, early '90s when they actually had tag teams and they people were given a long run with a storyline. I think with the short attention span of people nowadays, storylines aren't sticking very fat. Like they're here and gone so quick.
Hmm.
I remember back in the '80s where they would build you up a storyline, tag teams, or the first Survivor Series was like 10 teams on 10 teams, and they were legit tag teams. So there was very, it was definitely focused on back then compared to now. But I really hope that Triple H, with his NXT program, because it's doing amazing, I really hope that that rubs off on the creative team for Raw and SmackDown, because I think they can have a really, really hot product again.
So in the, I'd say, media recently, there's been a lot of criticism on Roman Reigns. Uh, what is your opinions on the man as a performer?
I think Roman Reigns, like I said, with the short attention span, I think guys are just being thrown into the main event spots without even really having a chance to hone their crafts. I think Vince sees something in them now, and everyone's just impatient. They want to just get on the money machine and start making shirts and making this, but you got to understand you're not always in front of the same crowds, and the crowds can react however they want. They pay their money. They either like you or boo you, but I think he got a bad reaction at the Royal Rumble. I think that was a very hard crowd to please, and because I mean he's been recepted well at the other shows since.
Hmm. So a little about Fast Lane. Obviously, it's going to head into WrestleMania main event with the repercussions of the Reigns Bryan match. Which way do you see that going?
I see him sticking with the storyline and giving it to Reigns. It's going to be Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. That's my belief, anyways. I mean, they could prove me wrong, but I think that with the way that he was recepted at the Royal Rumble, I think they didn't have a choice. But I think that they're going to have Roman Reigns beat Bryan, and then just to give him some, cred, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look, it wasn't just a fluke. He won the Rumble. Now he beat Daniel Bryan. Now he is going to.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll beat Brock Lesnar though.
Okay. So we'll talk a little about you. So let's just look at WWE as it is. We'll say you're debuting tomorrow or today, Fastlane. What would be your dream situation to debut? A storyline or anything like that right now?
My dream debut storyline.
Yeah.
I guess the Black Shadow. I guess maybe not even be a Mike Hart character. Just like have me as like something else, and then as the storyline progresses, you find out more and more who I am, and and then boom, all of a sudden it's like this isn't just anybody. This is Mike Hart or but maybe just be in the shadows of people and maybe jealous of their talents and because I've sort of been on the outside looking in kind of and almost like a crystal ball, where you're looking in it, but except you're looking in from the inside and coming out, and then save the best for last. It's like you unveil yourself.
Yep. Do you have any sort of stories? I'm guessing, are you on the road much at all?
On the road, well, I travel lightly now. It's not too demanding for PWA. I do their monthly shows in Kitchener, Ontario. So, but there's other venues that I've, participated in, and I used to have a full-time schedule with wrestling, like wrestling, 3, 4 nights a week, but I've really cut that out of my life and just sort of tried to stay focused with one company. So,
In terms of like burning yourself out, which did you prefer? Do you prefer the once a month I wrestle or the wrestling a bunch?
I would prefer wrestling every single day of my life because that's the only way you can actually get really good at something is if you apply yourself. If you have a wrestling ring in your backyard, you're going to be the best. It's just something you're going to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like having a gym in your home. You're going to work out if you have a gym in your home. It's just, it'd make it a lot easier as a performer, and you can actually hone your crafts and become a better wrestler if you just, had the amenities to have all that, like a ring, or even a ring that's close to you.
So I'm guessing the performance center that WWE have recently built would be quite a big dream then.
For me, definitely, I think it'd be anybody's dream to at least say once they wrestled for WWE or they were on a card or, they did something. It's almost, very hard because there's so many guys that want that, opportunity. So you're competing against numerous people just to try and get a look at too. And there's so many talented guys that deserve that too. So.
So with the performance center, I think it's got like 5 rings and the backstage mic environment and the green screen and everything. Do you think this is helping out mostly the NXT talents in terms of getting their skills ready?
I think it's absolutely, I do. I think that having all that stuff available to them prepares them for the next level. Not just NXT, but like pay-per-views like WrestleMania and SummerSlam and I think having all that stuff focuses, because you don't just have to work on one thing. There's 5 rings there. There's time for mic time. There's a green room. You can practice your interviews, and I think 20 years ago they didn't have any of that. So you're going to see a lot of good things happening there and a lot of good entertainers coming out of there. Definitely, that was one of the better investments they did.
Okay, do you prefer to wrestle under a heel gimmick or a face gimmick?
I've only wrestled face. I've never, I've never been a heel, so I don't have an answer for that. But wrestling as a face is it's been fun.
Yeah.
But nobody's ever presented me as a heel. They say I look too much like a baby face, so it's like you get what you get, right?
Fair enough. Would you like to, if given the opportunity, wrestle as a heel?
Absolutely. I think I'd shine the best being a heel. I think everybody's got that little inner demon inside of them.
So, I don't know how many years back we had Legacy, when Randy Orton decided to pull out all of the second and third generation superstars. And we saw a couple of them that came in and left almost immediately afterwards. Do you think there's anything that there's like a stigma attached to being in a wrestling family that might hinder you?
I think that it helps everybody. I think having like Evolution and Legacy, I think they were all, Randy Orton was the leader and Triple H was the leader of Evolution, and they were bringing in all these guys. And why not be with the top guys like Ric Flair and Triple H, or just Randy Orton alone? I mean, he's probably one of the best right now, Randy Orton for sure.
But when if you came in, you're at the WWE right now, you're always going to be attached to the Hart name. And we've seen that work for a bunch of people, but we've seen other people who maybe second or third generation and just can't handle the pressure of being under that family name. Do you think there's anything that you could do maybe to prepare yourself?
I just think it's instilled in you to sort of just try and give it your best, but everyone beats themselves up if they don't think they've had a good enough match, or maybe they screwed up somewhere, or you beat yourself up, and that's with every performer. So I think if you're just around the right people, and WWE has the right people there, I mean, they've got a vast amount of people there that will tend to you, and talk to you, and you have somebody to talk to. And I think if you have, if you can communicate with yourself, that's what will help you in WWE too, whether you're in a stable or a tag team or whatever communication, because a lot of guys just keep to themselves or don't say a word because they're job scared, or I think if you openly communicate about yourself, or I think that gives you more of a push as well. Just be yourself, and
Okay. So you definitely talked about liking NXT a little more than the current product, but if you're looking to the future, do you prefer a Vince-run WWE or a Triple H-run WWE?
Triple H. Triple H, just because he's done so many good things for NXT, and that's all him doing that. He does have help there, obviously, but that's him with, the production, the way everything goes through Triple H. And I think that he's earning Vince's trust, definitely. And I really hope that it does pass off to Raws and SmackDowns, because I think over time, everything will, draw big money for Vince again, because, there's no real competition for him, and I think competition helps everybody.
Talking about competition, do you watch any of the other shows that are being produced? So you got TNA, I think you got Lucha Underground as well.
I've never seen Lucha Underground, but I see little spot things on YouTube about it. But I stopped watching TNA. I watch a lot of Ring of Honor. That's basically, and New Japan Pro Wrestling. I've watched a lot of that stuff on YouTube as well.
Do you think that any of these companies are getting close to trying to breach that point?
I missed that whole question. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I was basically saying, do you think any of these other companies are getting close to breaching up and being competition for WWE?
I hope Ring of Honor does. I mean, they have the talent. Everything just takes money, right? But obviously they're not going to have the money Vince McMahon has. So their production values could need some work. But in-ring promos, they're ready to go, I believe.
Okay. So is there anyone down in NXT of all of those competitors who have come off the independents and all of that you'd like to wrestle?
Definitely. Fergal David.
Okay.
I would love to wrestle him. He's just, even his entrance is just I don't think I've ever seen an entrance like that besides the Boogeyman.
Yeah.
It's just the mystique about it. It's just so cool. And he's he's in no rush, he's just totally in character the whole time. And it just makes it really great. Everything about it.
Do you think that him and a couple of the other guys will be up on the main roster soon, or do you think they're going to let them stew down in NXT for a little longer?
I think Adrian Neville, Sami Zayn are pretty much ready. Even Finn Balor and Hideo Itami. I mean, those guys hone their craft. I think they're just getting ready for, preparing themselves for the WWE style. It's a little bit different than wrestling in Japan or wherever they came from, and everything's different in WWE. And, I seriously see a lot of those guys on the roster soon. I don't understand why the Ascension was pushed so hard.
Okay. Putting yourself in their shoes, so a top NXT talent, would you prefer to stay down on NXT for a little longer where you're being booked by Triple H and you've got all of that, or to go up to that main roster?
I would stay in NXT for as long as I could and just soak everything that Triple H said. Because he's got all the keys to make a great, successful wrestler.
Okay. Because we've seen a couple of people who were very well received on NXT come up to the main roster and just fall flat, basically.
Absolutely, it happens. I mean, they come up with a good storyline and it works in NXT, but it doesn't work on the main roster because the fact of it is the story, creative won't get behind some of their characters, Triple H is very specific with the way he wants stuff, and it works in NXT, and then, creative's different for Raw and SmackDown, so they try and push them, but, I mean, 9 times out of 10, when you're watching, the Ascension are basically going over jobbers, local talent. And I mean, they did beat the Road Dogg or New Age Outlaws, did they not, at the last pay-per-view?
Yep.
So, I mean, they are getting a push. I think with their comments that they've made about Hawk and just about some of the old time wrestlers. I don't think I think it's leaving a very bad taste in people's mouths.
Yeah.
They're great performers, I'm nothing taken away from their talent. I just think the storyline and the way their promos are coming out, it's not really giving them a very strong fan base.
Fair enough. So multiple times now we've seen the dominant debut just constantly squishing local talent. Do you think that's a useful storyline at this point, or do you believe that's just way too played out?
I actually think it's a good idea. I remember back being a kid and watching, your favorite wrestler, like whether it be the Hart Foundation or the Killer Bees, and it was always against local guys, like Barry Horowitz or Iron Mike Sharp or Tim Horner, or, stuff like that. And it really actually pushed those guys, so you weren't always seeing everything all at once, like Roman Reigns versus, Brock Lesnar on Free Raw, and it built them up. So when their pay-per-views happened, the pay-per-views mattered. The storylines were good, and it was almost more believable. Because I mean, yeah, you can obviously tell who was going to win. If you saw guys like Bret Hart versus and Jim Neidhart against local guys, you knew who was going over. But it gave it some sort of mystique, like where what's going to happen at the pay-per-view, because they'd build little storylines. They'd have the Rougeaus do run-ins and stuff like that, or the Bulldogs, and then they'd keep playing it out, playing it out, playing it out, and then SummerSlam would hit, and then they'd have it there, and then something would, and then they'd keep it going. Like, storylines were lasting for a long time back then, and I think they need to bring all that back, and I think having local talent not only frees up, space on the indie scene, but it gives local guys a chance to shine too, because everybody wants to wrestle for Vince at least once.
So we've been talking about the change in wrestling from the 80s to now, how there's shorter attention spans and you're getting things much quicker and in faster doses. Do you think this is in part to the fans aging, or in part to storylines and creative just not being on the pulse?
I just think it has to do with WWE trying to grow. I mean, they're just trying to see, different options, and they go with different things. But, I think they're just doing it for, like, to see the reaction of the fans, because obviously the fans were really upset when Roman Reigns won the Rumble. And then and now they have him doing this thing with Daniel Bryan, and I'm sure he's going to go over, but I think they're just trying to, feel it out, but get the fans on board. Like, listen, we understand you don't want Roman Reigns to win, but this is what we want. So they'll just keep cramming it down, until you get it.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, so if we go back to the 80s, the peak of wrestling here, who would you put yourself in matches against?
Back in the 80s, Ric Flair,
Hmm?
the Rockers, the Hart Foundation, Demolition, just, people that you can learn from. And, they had so many cartoon characters back in those days, but I mean, I always liked the cartoon guys. And yeah, it became much when they had guys like Bushwhackers and, guys like, Duke Drosy, the Dumpster, and, the Dean, Dean Douglas and stuff. I mean, that's where, things were sort of getting a little weirder. But, Jake the Snake Roberts with the snake, Coco Beware, the Bulldogs with the Matilda, and I thought all that stuff was cool, and I really think they should go back to some of that stuff.
Okay, so just as a final thing, do you have any upcoming shows or anything else you want to say?
Absolutely. I did a show yesterday, and I have another show on March 28th in Kitchener for PWA, and you can find them on Twitter at PWA Canada, or on Facebook, or on the web at pwacanada.com. And there's a lot of great talents there, and like I said, my brother Corey's managing me, and we had a really good 7-month run of the Ontario title, and I lost it last night, and it's just moving on to something else, and getting familiar with maybe a run in the tag teams, or maybe keep on with the singles. But it's always fun, and I appreciate all the fan support on the pages. Each and every one of you. I know it's just a like button, but to me it's a lot because it shows support. I appreciate everybody watching all my YouTube videos and staying in touch, and always sending me messages, seeing how I'm doing. It makes me feel good. I'm glad I can do it for you guys. And it's been a lot of fun, and I thank you very much for having me on your show.
It's all right. Just before we go, do you want to promote your social media pages, your Twitter, your Facebook?
Absolutely, you can find me at the match MH on Twitter. You can also find me on my fan page at Mike the Match Hart, and there's also a campaign going around to try and get me in the WWE, and that's Mike Hart for WWE. And there's just a few people I want to thank, actually, if that's okay.
Yep, go ahead.
I want to thank, first of all, I want to thank PWA for always giving me the opportunity to, wrestle for them and become better. I want to thank my friend Chris Shell, too, for always making me look my best there in the ring. I want to thank my bro Corey. It's been a long road. Today's actually 1 year we've been with Kitchener and PWA, so, working with him's been very, very fun. My other brother, Tor Hart, I love you, buddy, and thank you very much. And Jackie Wilkes, both you guys for the campaign, means a lot. And even my friend Wayne Cudney for the match name, it always stuck with me. So I appreciate everything that everyone's ever done for me. So including yourself, sir.
All right, thanks. Okay, so it's been great talking to you.
Thank you very much for having me. And I just want to hear your predictions before we go on Fast Lane.
Oh, yeah, sweet. Any particular matches?
How about the tag? Cesaro against the Usos and Tyson Kidd.
I think that we're moving away from the Usos. They've held the titles for a while now. And to be honest, the Usos haven't done much with the titles other than just hold them around. And I think it's time to move on. Even though Vince seems to think that Cesaro doesn't connect with the fans per se, he's definitely showing it in the ring that both those two men are probably some of the better athletic talent that WWE has.
Definitely. What are your thoughts on Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan?
From the start, it was fairly obvious that Reigns is the man they're going with. It's very hard to change WWE's mind. The thing I want to make sure doesn't happen would be an exact repeat of last year.
Absolutely.
No way should there be a triple threat, and that would just be a complete rehash of last year.
I think so too. I think fans are getting sick of being, handed the three ways.
Personally,
I got one more question for you.
Yep.
What about Sting and Triple H? Do you think that's just going to be a lead-off for WrestleMania?
Yes. I imagine there might be an actual little bit of fisticuffs, but I think it'll just lead into a WrestleMania match, which could be Sting's one and only, depending on...
I think tonight we're going to see Undertaker too. That's just my opinion, but I think they're doing something... it's kind of hard to tell with the storyline they're doing with Bray Wyatt, but I think it's leading to the Undertaker.
Yeah, I've definitely heard all of the Bray Wyatt Undertaker rumors coming through the mill. Supposedly Undertaker's already dyed the greys out of his hair and getting ready.
But I think that it only makes sense tonight if he was, made an appearance. I believe that.
Yeah, I think after Fast Lane, you got 4 or 5 weeks before WrestleMania. If you're gonna do Bray Wyatt Undertaker, he's gotta reemerge sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. I think keeping him off TV is killing a little bit. It's too much. The once a year where you don't see him, or I hope they resurrect that very soon.
Yeah, it depended, because after his loss to Brock Lesnar, it was definitely a question of whether he would come back or not, if he'd just leave it at that.
Absolutely, but Undertaker's had a really nice run, and he's looked at like a locker room leader there. I mean, he's the godfather of wrestling in that locker room, pretty much.
Okay. Is that your final question about Fastlane?
Final question about Fastlane?
Yep. Okay, so it's been great.
Ziggler's wrestling. Is Dolph Ziggler in Fastlane tonight? Isn't he wrestling? Or who's wrestling Wade Barrett?
Wade Barrett is Dean Ambrose.
Dean Ambrose.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that?
This one's a little bit of a toss-up. I can see it going both ways, whether it's a Dean clean win or some form of dirty finish that'll lead to a rematch at WrestleMania. With only one main world title, they've got to promote those smaller titles, which they've obviously done by putting John Cena in with the US title.
Right.
But you've got to elevate the Intercontinental one as well. So I don't think the title will change hands, but Dean Ambrose might win.
That's a good prediction. Do you what are your thoughts on the John Cena and Rusev?
That match will either not happen or it will end really quickly in some finish that'll cause a rematch. I think
I agree. I agree. I don't think they're going to give it to John Cena tonight.
it seems like way too big of a caliber of a match to just give it away on Fast Lane, especially since it's the free month for the network.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you were asking about Ziggler before. I believe it was announced that it's Ziggler, Rowan, and Ryback versus Rollins, Big Show, and Kane in a six-man tag.
That's right. What are your thoughts on that? I don't see them doing much with Eric Rowan. I really just think they should have kept him and Luke Harper in the Wyatt family.
Yeah, in terms...
Because it's sad, man. I mean, the guy's such a character, but he's not a face. You know, you can't put that kind of character, you know, as a heel, and he's so good, and then throw him as a face. Like, it just does, and then job him out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always thought that they should have kept the Wyatt family together.
Yeah, Harper and Rowan definitely, even without Wyatt, I think they could continue on as a tag team.
Right.
And that Rowan definitely showed his best in those tag team matches. Like, he's a great performer, but he's not going anywhere right now.
That's what I mean. Like, the character's just so good, but I don't think having him as a face is a good character move for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. In terms of the six-man tag, it might be a bit too many returns, but I've definitely heard Randy Orton to come out and set up a feud with Rollins.
That would make sense.
So, but at that point now we've got Sting, and we've got Orton, and we've got Undertaker. I don't know, they might be overloading the card to make people stay for the network, I guess.
Right. But I think they're also trying to build for next year's Mania too, because isn't next year's Mania supposed to hold over 100,000 people?
I think so. I think it's the big one.
I've heard stuff about that, and it's like, okay, if you're gonna have something like that, there's got to be a great storyline leading up to that. Like, they have the characters. I just really hope that creative can start marketing a lot better to lead up to that Mania, so they can actually set a world right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
And I think also announced, I don't know if it was announced previously, but I was just scrolling through Facebook, that we're going to get Goldust versus Stardust.
Right. Is that for Mania or for tonight? That's tonight.
That's tonight, yeah.
I think they're going with Stardust on that, because I think Goldust was trying to... I think he's retiring, isn't he?
Yeah, I think it's time for Goldust to sort of head off.
Absolutely. He came back, and I think this was his best run, because he looked like, you know, just so ready, and him, like, their matches were great.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether, again, we'll see a definitive finish or if we lead into another match, because I think it was like 3 years ago, Goldust was pushing for his Goldust versus Cody match that he never got, and then he came back and he's like, well, I'm content with tagging with him. But the dream has always been those two at WrestleMania.
Yeah, but they'll do it tonight, and maybe it'll lead into Mania. Like, maybe Goldust will go over tonight, and then Cody will, or, you know, Stardust will be pissed and say, I want a rematch at Mania, and put him over at Mania, and then, you know, Goldust retires, you know, at Mania.
What do you think about the Stardust gimmick?
I like it, but I mean, he plays a good character. I don't know where he's going with it.
Yeah.
It's good. I mean, it's something different. It's not like he changes his paint and his costumes and stuff, so he keeps it like fresh, you know. But I just don't know where they're going with that gimmick.
Yeah, I think the only place that gimmick can go is the removal of that gimmick. In terms of him going back to Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, but that just goes back to WWE just trying different stuff with different people, right? Because, nature runs its course after a while. And, like, let's face it, they didn't really do. I mean, yeah, Cody Rhodes had a bit of a run. He was with Legacy, and then, he had the mask on, and he was doing the whole don't hit my face. And then, but I think they had to do something different for him
Yeah.
with him. Because I don't know. I just think he's like one-sided with his characters, but I think him doing the Stardust has actually opened up a few doors for him. Like, you know,
Fair enough. And the last match I think we haven't talked about is... Oh, no, we talked about Cena. I think that's everything. Like, do you
yeah.
think...
Don't they have like a opening though?
I th-
Like, isn't it like girls or something?
Oh, yeah, we got the Divas Paige versus Nikki.
Page over.
Yeah, probably. Or again... See, there's so many things here where it just leads to a rematch at WrestleMania.
Right. I think you're gonna see a lot of rematches from this Fast Lane pay-per-view at Mania.
Um,
I just think that it's just gonna be on a grander stage, right?
yeah,
Because like you said, it's free. The network's free for non-subscribers for the month of February. So they're gonna they're not just gonna give away everything.
yeah. Overall, what do you think the Fastlane pay-per-view out of like 5 or out of 10?
A rate out of 5 or a 10.
Yeah, how well do you think it'll go?
Honestly, with the way pay-per-views have been going, probably like a 5.
Yeah,
Because I mean, some of it's just so predictable, but then they have those like ones where they hook you, where you think it's going one way, like kind of the streak, how they did that, where you kind of almost thought in your mind Undertaker's not going to lose, they're not going to make him lose, and then he does, right?
yeah,
So they always have that hook, but I just the significance of the matches on there, I think could be done a little bit better. Like I just think that there's so many talented guys that need to be in the right matches with the right people in order to have a successful pay per view. But I think when they throw just matches together, like it just kind of screws with people, right?
yeah. Okay, so is that the end of your Fastlane discussion?
Yeah, it
Okay,
is. Thank you very much, man, for having me.
it's alright. Hopefully we see big things coming from you.
Thank you, and if you ever want to do another one, absolutely.
Yep, sweet as.
Thank you very much.